So let's wait a second.
9, 8, 6,
Not yet.
And there's no one here in the first second, so it's kind of
There's no one here. Yeah. They're not that quick. Yeah, true. So we'll wait a couple of minutes. Yeah. Hello, everybody. You're all here. We don't know if anyone is watching on the YouTube channel live stream, but welcome if you are. And welcome to everyone here this morning. You're all looking more shiny and more smiley. I wonder if you brought your teddy bears. Did you bring your teddy bears? We brought 2 more teddy bears.
Yeah, I haven't got one.
Yeah.
I'm deprived.
Yeah, you always said hello to Venerable Peter Sukha. She's a 6th Vasa, almost Majjhima. She's almost a middle non. That means she's no more a junior non.
Okay.
She was ordained in careful of her robe. They can't see her, Ajahn.
Oh, we can't.
No, you had to hold her up.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the first Bhikkhuni bear of Great Britain. Venerable P.T. Sukha. Oh, look at the dog.
Yeah.
The dog is the luckiest dog ever.
I can't do that. Here we go.
So there she is. Oh, her beanie. My mum stitched the beanie for her. Anyway, she's a very nice bear. And we have Jerapin, which is the Noongar indigenous people of Western Australia, the Noongar word for happiness. This is Jerapin. What a sweet bear. Jerapin actually only listens, he doesn't talk. So I don't see any more bears. Okay, Madeline has a bear.
That's a nice one.
Let's see on the other screens. Oh, Melanie has a bear. Oh, there's loads of bears. Little Pekka has a sheep. And Alice has a bear. And there's a cat. Look, Augustina's cat.
What's Petra got there?
Who?
That's a big. Is that a bat or
No, it's a sheep, isn't it?
a sheep?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eric's got a cat. Look at that. Do you like the whiskers?
Whiskers are good, yeah.
And what's Richard got? Some kind of angel, fairy.
That's nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
The people listening to this afterwards, I think we're mad because they won't be seeing any of this.
Yeah, I know they're going to actually to come and take us away.
In the loony bin. Okay.
It's nice to have some joy and happiness in your life. And it doesn't matter what other people say, as long as you're having fun and enjoying it. Beautiful thing you're doing.
Okay. The sound should be okay. I'm not sure if anybody else has problems with the sound.
I'm not hearing someone.
No.
That's Joseph.
Brianna. No.
I'll have to speak louder. How is that?
I think it's okay. I think it might be her
Okay, someone
particular
says
connection.
okay.
All right, so I'll hand over to Ajahn Brahm for the morning's talk.
The morning talk. And it will have nothing to do about bears.
Are you sure?
No, probably not. But for the morning talk, I've done some serious talks already. So I wanted to make this a lighter talk, but also a very meaningful and useful talk. It was just this morning, just when I woke up, and I don't know why, but I just thought about, I didn't experience fear, but I thought that'd be a nice little talk to give a discussion on how to deal with fear and how to move beyond fear. And believe it or not, as a monk, there is many times you can experience fear. And one of those experiences of fear, I was going to mention it a couple of yesterday, when people were talking about, being afraid of all sorts of things, especially accidents. And I remember years ago, it became very, very dangerous to fly, in an aircraft. And especially there was one aircraft, it was a Malaysian aircraft, which got shot down. Now, there was obviously some misunderstanding of what the aircraft was, what it was doing. But I was actually following that same route very often whenever I come over to UK and go and do some teachings here. And some of my disciples, they told me, Ajahn Brahm, we're not going to allow you to go overseas anymore. It's too dangerous. You're flying over the Middle East, and who knows what might happen there. And then I just responded immediately. Said, look, I'm not afraid of flying. I have it all worked out, I said. First of all, this is one of the reasons why I have a big robe. This robe is about 3 meters by 2 meters. It's very tough. So I said, if ever we see a missile coming towards the aircraft over the Middle East somewhere, I'll be quite safe. I can jump out, I'll hold 4 corners of the road, and I'll come down like a parachute. And then they said, that's a good idea. I think that's probably why monks and nuns got the reputation of being good levitators. It's not levitation, it's just jumping out of an aircraft, using this as a parachute. But then they said, but what if it's like a missile and you get blown up at 30,000 feet and it goes bang? You won't float down then. And that's when I told people what I, to this day, became quite well known for, the 3 advantages of dying in an aircraft explosion at 30,000 feet. Now, you know that I've always done this my whole life. It's one of the reasons why you don't really feel much fear. And that is always see the positive side of things. So if Ajahn Brahm dies at 30,000 feet in an aircraft explosion over the Middle East, there are 3 advantages. And those first advantage is that it's an instant cremation. It's done on the spot. You don't have to book things and get all your family together to meet and to make sure have lots and lots of ceremonies. It's just done, boom, there and then. And as an extra benefit, your ashes are sprinkled all by themselves. You don't have to arrange it. What should we do with it? Shall we bury it? Shall we put the ashes in urns? And shall we what should we do with the ashes? They are spread evenly all over the world. Would be nice to do. And then, so free cremation. And number 2 is that have you ever performed cremation services for people? They are extremely expensive. They cost quite a few £1,000s. But if you die in an aircraft explosion, number 1, you don't have to pay anything, and you get an insurance payout from the from the airline. So you're actually family. If I die on the aircraft explosion on the way to Anukampa, on the way back again, I would donate all the money to Anukampa Bhikkhuni Project. Is that a good idea?
No. Yes,
okay. I'll donate to the Bodhinyana Monastery. So anyhow, it's financially very, very attractive. And I tell many people also that the biggest benefit of dying in an aircraft explosion at 30,000 feet is that no matter who you are, you're so close to heaven, it's easy to go the rest of the way, no problem. So that was my little 3 advantages of dying at 30,000 feet. And I only say that so as to make people a little bit more confident. The chances of that ever happening are very, very small. And because of that, and looking at things with a positive attitude takes away much of the fear. And that's been my life, taking away the fear. Because sometimes as a Buddhist monk, as a Buddhist nun, sometimes if you walk down the street, people haven't got a clue who the heck you are. And so sometimes when you were walking down the street and people didn't know who you were, I just remember one time, I'm never afraid of just being a monk, in a Western society which doesn't understand you. I remember the first year I went to Perth. When I was in Perth, I was doing a lot of building work. And so usually on the weekend, we'd load in that day, a combi van. That was a very cheap, but very reliable big vehicle. We put all our building stuff in there. And then I remember even getting some wood from the wood yard to build our huts. And the guy who helped us load it, in a big combi van, it's quite a big area. Take all the seats out, and we didn't just have the wood in the back, literally, from the floor to the roof. But we also had a big stash of wood on top of the roof as well, on the bars on top of the roof. And I remember the guy who owned the wood yard told us that you guys must do a lot of praying to be able to get that load back to the monastery. And of course, that got some faith, because we'd always get back safe and come back for some more the next time we were building a hut. But anyway, it was lovely to be able to meet just the locals and to start, showing how you can relax in times of hard work and difficulty. But when we were loading that van once, we were loading that van in town to take to monastery. And I remember the neighbor from our next door to our little vihara, tiny little vihara, but the neighbor's daughter came out. She must have been about 10 or 11 years of age, maybe 12. And then she put her hands on her chest, hips. I think they call it arms akimbo. And she looked at me, up and down with as much disgust as she could possibly concoct on her face, and said, "You are dressed like a girl. That's sick." Are you ever afraid of being put down, criticized in public? If ever I'm criticized in public like that, I thought that was so funny. I just burst out laughing and couldn't stop laughing and cracking up. And that really upset her, because the result was to make me feel uncomfortable. Did I feel uncomfortable? No way. I thought it was very funny. And that's always how I've been taught. Whenever anybody tries to upset you, they ever try and spoil your day, instead, just listen to it and see the funny side of it, see the positive side to it, and then you can always have a very happy time, whatever you're doing. And so every time when I've had to do such things, I've never felt afraid. Instead, you feel this is a nice opportunity to extend the repertoire of your experiences and see what can happen next. And also I do recall just how that can be not just personally a benefit, just facing fear and moving past fear. There was a time when I used to, if I ever need to feel afraid, probably the most dangerous places I've ever been is in the prisons, talking to the prison population, the crims, they call themselves, the short term for criminals. And some of those guys are really big. You just see the size of them. And some of them are in jail for so many years that they don't be afraid of anything, because, adding an extra couple of years on their sentence doesn't mean much to them. So I remember just seeing some of these prisoners inside jail. And one of the first times I went to the prison to teach, I was really taken up by just the person who arranged it, explained to me how long it took to arrange a monk actually to come inside that prison to teach. And he said almost a year, because the prison officers and the other people there just didn't want monks to come in. But anyway, that he persisted and persisted. And when I learned how much he persisted, how long he persisted, I thought, I got to reward that and respect that. So I went into that jail to teach. And I was so impressed. I think you may have heard this story. I hope it wasn't yesterday. and he was, I was so impressed that in this small prison in the town of Bunbury, which is south of Perth in Western Australia, about 102 prisoners actually came into the talk when it was a prison population of only 105 or 6 at the time. It was almost 100% turnout. And because it was such a great turnout, I thought I never realized that prisoners, people who've done terrible crimes, would actually be so interested in spirituality. And I thought, wow, I really underestimated, the prisoners. And some of these guys were really big and they were full of scars on them, really tough guys. And I remember I was talking about meditation to these prisoners, and then one of the prisoners stood up. Weirdly, he became a good friend afterwards. I really liked him, and he kind of bonded with me. He'd always come if I ever gave a talk inside the jail he was in. And I remember him standing up. He was huge, full of scars. He was one of the leaders of one of the gangs in the jail. And so he stood up and he said, "Is it all right if I ask you a question?" And this was in the middle of my talk. And of course I said, if you ever see anyone that big and strong and frightening and so scarred all over his face and everywhere, you always say, "Yes, sir." What question do you want to ask? And that's when this big guy said, "Is it really true that through meditation you can learn how to fly over walls?" It's such a silly question, but it made me sort of crack up and laugh. He thought that he could go into a couple of meditation classes, learn how to levitate, and the prison officers and guards would not be able to stop him. It's true that last part, they would not be able to stop him, but it takes a long time to learn how to levitate. So I told him it takes a long, long time. So the next week, which I went to that jail to teach, only 3 people turned up to listen. It made me find out exactly why they wanted to meditate. But still, at least it got them a little bit interested in what meditation is, and just more than just meditation, not just to fly over walls, but just how to overcome things like fear without violence. And so one afternoon, when I was also about to visit the jail in Bunbury, I would arrive in the afternoon just because it was hard to get public transport. And I would just sit meditation on the beach. This was on Bunbury Beach. And there was a big lot of sand there. It was warm, it was comfortable. And so I found a lot of solitude there in the afternoon. So it was free solitude. And I would just sit on the beach, not because it would look nice, but because it was quiet. And I would close my eyes. And on this, I'm going to tell another story first about Bunbury Beach. I like telling stories. This is like life as a monk. Actually, you won't have this story. You know the story, don't you?
I could have that story.
You could have that story, yeah. But this was very embarrassing for me as a monk. And so I sat down there on the beach. It was very comfortable. I had a nice meditation, a couple of hours. And I know exactly the time of the year. It's in November. It wasn't too hot. And I was sitting down there nice and quietly. No one was there when I sat down. And then when I opened my eyes, I realized there was someone sitting to my left and someone sitting on my right. I thought, this is weird. And then when I looked, honestly, the young woman sitting on my left was would have been a 17-year-old blonde in a bikini. And the one on my right was a 17-year-old brunette, also in a bikini. And I thought, what are they doing? Is this a setup? If somebody had actually taken a photograph of me and taken it to the home monasteries in Thailand, I would have been in huge trouble. How can you explain that? Here's Ajahn Brahm on the beach on a sunny afternoon with two beautiful women on either side in bikinis.
It is beach.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not supposed to be there. Those are some of the situations you get in. But what happened was I was just meditating, really nice and peaceful and still. And that afternoon, that was the last day of the final year of exams to enter university. And so all that school, which was on the opposite side of the road, had just finished their exams. And what do? You just finish the exams. It's a beautiful day. You get into your bathers, into your bikinis, and go to the beach to celebrate. All that hard work and stress is now gone. And a couple of those girls, they saw me on the beach, and I was just meditating. So I was not aware of what was going on next to me or around me. I never saw those students come out of the school, and I was just meditating. So the first thing I knew, I opened my eyes, and there's two beautiful women sitting either side of me, and also there's a lot of kids playing in the surf, starting their celebrations after their last exam of the school. And so, what do? You don't feel afraid, just cautious, yes. So I wanted to know about meditation. What the heck was I doing? It's the first time I'd ever seen someone be so still and peaceful on the beach. Because people go on the beach to fun, exercise or whatever, and I was just being really still. And so they wanted to know, what are you doing? Why? It's the first time they'd seen anything like that. And so I discussed with them a bit about meditation and just how peaceful it is and how wonderful it is. And they were very, very happy. It's just a little extra bonus at the end of the school year. But on that same beach, a later time, that when I was meditating on there, I hadn't gone into deep meditation yet, and you felt, so I heard a sound just whishing past your ear. I thought, that's really weird. And then another sound, and then another sound. And that's when I realized that somebody was throwing stones at me on the beach. And then I heard the sound of some kids, and they were shouting out, "Get off our beach, Rajnishi." You know that Rajnishi, that was his Bhagavan Sri Rajneesh, who was threatening to open up a branch of his organization in Western Australia. "Get off our beach, Rajnishi." Then another stone whistled past my ear. I'm very good, they weren't good shots, but I was also a mathematician trained in statistics, and I realized it's only a matter of time by statistical chance that one of those rocks might hit me. So I realized I just can't just sit here and wait to get hit by a rock. So I stood up. But of course, there's no way in the world I'm going to run away. I stood up, turned around, and walked towards those kids. And that was an amazing reaction when you walk towards danger without fear rather than running away. Because as I walked towards those kids, they all ran away. They became scared. And I was only, honestly, in those days, I was a thin monk. I've actually put on a lot of weight in the 50 years I've been a monk. Originally, I was really thin and skinny. And they all ran away, except for one. And one stayed. And so I went right up to him, and I wasn't going to have a fight with him. I said, "What are you throwing rocks for?" "Anyway, I'm not a Rajneeshi, I'm a Buddhist monk." I said, "Oh, Buddhist monk, what do you do?" And he gave me the opportunity to teach some Dhamma to these kids. And once I was talking with one of these kids, all the other kids, about 7 or 8 of them, came up and I talked to them too. It was a wonderful opportunity to show that I'm not going to show any fear, follow any fear. I was not suppressing it. It just wasn't there. I didn't feel afraid. And it also gave the opportunity that they were not being just talked at by some person who was an intellectual, but someone who knew what they're talking about and practiced it. So it became impressive. So I always notice those times as when, if you don't follow fear, but you have this great sense of, as long as you're doing lots and lots of good karma and you're a good person, that you sometimes get invulnerable. And it's also the case that later on, because I'm in UK this week, and when I was in UK, I do remember I used to go and stay with my mother. It was over in the council flats in Acton, and just to be of use, and also to remind myself that I'm a monk first and foremost. I used to go and give talks at the Sri Lankan Vihara in Chiswick, and they called it the London Buddhist Vihara, and it was situated in Chiswick. And so I remember I would volunteer to give whatever talks you want me to give. And so I went there one evening, and as I was walking there, I was walking down one of the places in South Acton called Acton Lane. And I knew even then, when I was living there, this was the area where I grew up. This is my backyard as a student, as a young man. I knew that was a very, very rough area of London. Like they used to call it like a sink estate, a hotbed of crime. And sure enough, I was walking down the road in London. And as I was walking down that road, I saw a group of, well, say it as it is, like yobbos. They were just meeting together in the evening, didn't have anything to do, and just looking for some kind of entertainment. And so they saw me walking towards them. And as they saw me walking towards them, they started chanting, Buddha, 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 Buddha. They were trying to intimidate me by chanting like that. And as I know I was in trouble, I knew I could cross the road. I knew the area so well, I could turn around and go another way. And I said, no way. I'm going to just face this. So I carried on walking towards them, not increasing my pace, not slowing down, not looking fearful. And as I was walking closer, the more the kids came up, gathering together, and they started chanting faster, Buddha, 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 Buddha. And then as I got even closer, Buddha, 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 Buddha. They were really trying to intimidate me. So what does a good Buddhist do when they try to be intimidated like that? I realized I just couldn't just walk peacefully through them. And I do remember when I was a young man, before I became a monk, when I used to watch the TV, there was one TV show program in UK I would always try and watch. And that was a TV program called Kung Fu by David Carradine or something. I forget now, it's such a long time ago. I know I was a school teacher when I used to watch that TV program, and all my fellow teachers say, I thought Buddhism was quite peaceful path, and this guy is always beating up somebody or shooting at somebody every episode. And I had a point there. But anyway, I remember the Kung Fu TV program. And so when I got closer to these young kids, I just looked straight at them and I raised my hands in what I what I thought was a kung fu posture. It probably was not a kung fu posture at all. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no training in kung fu, and I did have my brown robe on. I did have a bald head. I was showing no fear, and I assumed my kung fu pose. You know what they did? Sometimes I think I should be more scared. I'm going to get into trouble one day, but it always worked for me so far. So I did my kung fu pose, and they were chanting Buddha, 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 and I did my kung fu pose, and I just walked the same speed right through them. They parted and let me through, calling their bluff. And luckily it worked. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So I love little incidences like that. It's wonderful when you understand what fear is and you don't even let it happen. You have this great confidence and trust in goodness, much more confidence in goodness than many people give credit for. And that means you can have a lot of safety and a lot of fun as well, and joy to enjoy your life living fearlessly. But what happens when I wanted to tell this story a couple of days ago, that some of the time, as a Buddhist monk or Buddhist nun, we are concerned about all the people who come to our temple, look after us. And I remember this time when I got this telephone call, from a young girl. Her parents were Buddhist, Thai Buddhist, but she was born in Australia, very much westernized. I don't know even if she could talk much Thai. But she was in Adelaide University doing a degree in dentistry at the time. No, okay, I've got plenty of time. In dentistry. And she had panic attacks. Such bad panic attacks, extreme panic attacks, she could not even leave her room. And she had the best of doctors. She was a student at the university and had so much support from professionals, but no professional could actually just help her. And she was stuck in her room, too afraid to leave, go to any lectures or any tutorials. But I also remember she had this amazing boyfriend called Lloyd. And Lloyd would look after her, do all her washing, cook for her and everything, because she could not do anything at the time. She was paralyzed with fear. And then her husband, her father was a disciple. So her father told her to go and call me. And when she did call, that is when I told her, this little method of overcoming fear, especially extreme fear. Because fear is not there all the time. Sometimes you have attacks of panic, which just come and you cannot control them. They're just there and they paralyze you. You're afraid to do anything. And so she told me about this. And then I asked her, I said, when you have a panic attack, do you experience any feelings or sensations in your body? And that's when, she paused for a while. She trusted me. She respected me because her father was a close supporter. And then she said, actually, I feel this tightness, tension in my chest when I have a panic attack. I said, great. Now I want you to tell me exactly where you feel it. Now you're going to be a dentist, you're a scientist, you're a smart lady. Can you please give me coordinates? Now, from your navel, your belly button, how many centimeters and millimeters does it extend upwards? And to the left and the right, can you please an accurate description of where you feel that sensation whenever you have a panic attack? And I said, I'll give you 3 days, because she had nothing else to do. And I was busy. I was on retreat, so I was supposed to be doing meditation. So I did my meditation. She did her assessment of where she has the associated physical feeling when she has a panic attack. And she gave, after 3 days, this very accurate description of, when she has a panic attack, the feeling, this is where it starts, and it grows and it extends this way and that way on her chest. Of course, I think you understand what I was doing. I was asking her to be mindful, to be aware of what it feels like, not trying to get rid of it, not trying to get afraid of it, not just to be aware of it. And when she gave that description, I said, yes, that's good, but how exactly does it feel? Does it feel the same in all parts of that area of your chest? Or is it more painful, more tight, more stretched in one area and more contracted in another area? Please give me a description. Give me a call in 3 days. So another 3 days, and then she gave, after 6 days, this incredible description of when she had panic attacks, how it felt, where it felt, how it changed. It was really impressive. I must admit that she was a very smart girl. And so once she gave me the description, I said, I think you're mindful enough of it now. Now, the next thing which you have to add is the lovely metta, loving kindness. So I said, get your hand. You can still do this. You're bedridden, but at least you can actually move your hand. Just put it on your chest and just rub and massage that area of the body which feels tight, which is hurting, which is stretched, which is irritated, however you call it, by that panic. Because the panic is an emotional state, but it has a manifestation on your body. And so she said she would do that. And to encourage her, I told her, look, if you feel too tired to do it yourself, ask your boyfriend, Lloyd. I'm sure he'd be very happy to massage you on your chest to relieve the tension and pressure there. But tend to massage it very softly with lots of kindness. And they did that. And after another 3 days, after 9 days, she called again and I asked, how did it go? She said, I followed the instructions. And I asked him, or I did it myself, to massage the area when I had a panic attack. And so then what happened? They said, when that happened, just the tension in the chest sort of diminished, and eventually the tension in my chest went. And then, please excuse me that I pause here, because this was one of the beautiful moments which I'll never forget. Then I asked her, and what happened to the anxiety, to the fear? And that's when she paused. I was 2,000 kilometers away in Perth and Adelaide, but nevertheless, you could feel the lights go on in her mind, the eureka moment. That's when she said, and when the physical manifestation of anxiety left me, so did the fear. I said, great. Now you know what to do. And she did that. And it was one of those beautiful experiences as a teacher. She did that. And then she was out of bed within a few days, back to university, first class honours in the dentistry. And she got a place over in Sydney to do this special course in dentistry, with her partner, Lloyd. And then eventually she did contact me and said, Lloyd and I had decided to get married on one condition, and that's that you do our marriage ceremony for us. So I had the great honor of actually doing the little chanting for her and Lloyd at their marriage ceremony as an act of gratitude. Thank you, you saved my life. So I want you to be there when we continue our life together. Those are those beautiful examples of how these are not just helping a human being overcome fear. It's actually getting people's lives together, and not just once, many, 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 many times. I always notice that anything like fear, it does have an emotional part, a mental part, but it's very difficult unless you know your mind really, really well to overcome these emotions like fear just by working on your own mind. It's much better when you can feel there's a physical manifestation of that emotion somewhere. When you can find that physical manifestation of that emotion, then see if you can deal with that. And it's fantastically effective. Even one of the doctors over in Perth, she's heard me tell that story so many times. And please excuse me if I don't know how many times you've heard that story, but I still reinforce it every time which I say it. And for this particular doctor, she was busy, as many doctors were, and one of her patients had chronic anxiety and was on oxygen because she couldn't really breathe properly all the time. And she told me that in that hospital, the usual treatment was going through one drug after another drug after another drug. Try the most common first of all, and then the next one, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. And eventually she got to the last recommended medication. And this poor old lady was still anxious. And she said I shouldn't have really done this. Actually, she should have, but she wasn't really allowed to. It was just to say Ajahn Brahm's method of dealing with anxiety. And so she said that late at night, 5 or 10 minutes, try this. And then she left to go back home. And the following morning, when she went to work again as the doctor in the hospital, that's when this lady said, I'm okay now, I'm going home. That method worked for me. I always remember that, and I was so happy that, it wasn't just one person who had confidence in you. It can work for so many people. And even, what's another place where you have fear? I wanted to mention this as well, because this is any of you who have to face the world and be assessed, to be tested, to do an exam or an interview, or, these things which you can worry about, think about. And instead of worrying and thinking about them, there's other ways of dealing with the problems, which, you learn when you do some meditation, when you learn Dhamma. You can learn to actually to face anything and never be so tense or upset. And this event, first of all, it just came from my own experience of the final exams at Cambridge University in 1972 in theoretical physics, simple stuff, as I say, just sums. And so I do remember in those days, it was crazy what they did there. And it was a 3-hour exam in the morning, 3-hour exam on the afternoon with no break. Hours of lunch break, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And Saturday as well. That was a bit too much, I thought, but I can't change things. 6 days, 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. And I was told my life depended on this. Of course, it would have been wonderful if I'd known I was going to be a monk. Then I wouldn't have bothered. You don't need degrees if you're a monk. I always remember the graffiti which I saw on the walls of the philosophy department in Cambridge University. It said, exams kill by degrees. In those days, graffiti was actually meaningful. And so anyway, I was faced with these really long exams, morning and afternoon, 6 days in a row. What do you do? Of course, I had a big breakfast, like I have here, which is very important. That's why I got used to have big breakfast. Thank you. And no lunch.
Eat that here too.
Oh, yeah, that's the trouble, isn't it now? But I used to have a dinner in the evening when I was a student. At lunch, I went back to my room to meditate. I was already meditating then. And so when I went back to my room to meditate, I sat down on a cushion, didn't think about any food, because I'm going to have another exam in another half an hour. I sat down on my cushion and started meditating. And this was such a wonderful experience because it taught me how to meditate, and it also taught me how to pass exams. Easy. So first thing, you sit down there. What do most people do when they first sit down? They think they're going to try meditating now. You got all the unfinished business from the past, Even though the morning exam was finished, it was over, I couldn't change it. That's the same with all of your past. You can't change it, it's done. Then you think, I can learn from it. No, you don't learn from the past. You learn much more from the present. So by then I was smart enough, I'd done enough meditation, I'd learned to let go of the past. Right or wrong, the exam paper was in, I can't change it now. So I let go of the worry about how I'd done. And the next thing which came into my mind, couldn't stop it, was worry about the afternoon exam. You know what a lot of people do? They try and plan for the future. I thought I should go and do some more study, last minute, revision. Swatting, yes. And so I didn't want to do that. Swatting was what many people did to flies. They swat them. I didn't want to do that to myself. So I decided just to let go of the future. And this is where, I got that little saying. I don't think I heard it from anyone else. That now is the only time you can do anything about your future. Your future is being made now. So if you care about your future, don't go off thinking about what's going to happen next. Put your effort, your focus in this wonderful present moment. Of course, what should you do now? Give it kindness. That's the best preparation you can possibly ever have for the future. And so I start thinking about the future. And this is what happened to me. And it was very revealing on how people, when they are in difficult situations of great tension, why they get sick. Because when I came into this present moment, let go of past, let go of future, eyes closed, just nothing else to look at except what's happening right now, I was actually physically shaking. And I had never seen that before. The reason why I'd never seen the state of my body under stress, so shaking, because I never paid attention to that ever before. I was always in the future or the past. But now, when you had nowhere else to look except right now, physically, I couldn't keep my body still. And then, as soon as you looked and could see the body shaking, it wasn't that hard. Just to learn how to shake a little bit less and a little bit less. This is where that mindfulness always gives you the opportunity for feedback. When I relaxed a little bit here, then it shook a bit less. And that gave me the feedback, I'm going in the correct direction. It only took about 5 minutes, and all that shaking stopped. And the last thing which I noticed on these meditations at lunchtime were just the fact that I was exhausted. You could feel that. And the simile which I used, which anyone in UK of my age will probably understand, it was like you were trying to use an old tea bag to make a new cup of tea. There was no oomph left in the tea bag. It had all been drained out. That was my brain. It had been depleted of any energy. And of course, you never notice that. Because you don't notice that, to do your work, you push harder and push harder. And it doesn't really work. You just get more tired, more exhausted, more depressed, more sick. To me, that's a lot of times where depression can come from. You're exhausted and you keep pushing because you have to do something to work, and you get even more exhausted, and you get to the point where it's very hard to generate energy again in depression. So anyway, I saw that how tired I was. Physically, I'd relaxed. Now, mentally, I just didn't try anything. I just relaxed in this moment. And I only had half an hour to do all of this, but it always worked. After 10 or 15 minutes of relaxing my brain, when I opened my eyes at the end of the meditation, it was like you just woke up that morning. I don't mean you had any sleepiness. It meant that you just had energy in your brain. You could feel it. I wasn't even a monk at this time. I was a young student. But I do remember, and this is an honest comment which my friends made of me, that I was the only student who went into the afternoon exam room with a smile on my face. I had energy, and energy gives you happiness and smile. And they thought I was cheating. I remember them telling me that. Were you really cheating? How can anyone go into an afternoon examination, finals, on something simple like astrophysics of the galaxy or quantum mechanics? How can you do that with a smile on your face? Because I was relaxed. I mean, deeply relaxed. That's how I did well. And I love those little ways that we can use our Buddhist wisdom, not just understanding, but practice, to be able to do really, 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 really well. And that's actually how these things work. So these are some ideas of how we can overcome the fear and anxiety. When I was a school teacher, I used to know many young schoolboys and schoolgirls who were great. They understood math and science, but when they had an exam in front of them, they just blew it because they got too scared. And that caused them a lot of problems and difficulties. And it's totally unnecessary. The fear, killed their success. And so that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed talking about that and allowing people to understand it. What's the most, I'm going to go soon. What's the scariest thing that you can ever do? In the world, they always say the scariest job you could ever do is giving a public talk. And of all those public talks you can give, the scariest of the public talks is on live TV. Have ever you been interviewed on live TV where you make one mistake, such as scratching your nose, and that gets focused on because people like just to have a bit of humor in life? But how can you deal with live TV interviews? And it's really easy. Just let it be. Enjoy. Relax to the max. When you relax to the max, you don't really worry at all. If you make a mistake, fine. If it goes well, fine. Years and years ago, I decided never to be afraid whenever you have to give a public talk. And one of the reasons why is that if you do a good talk, it's wonderful. Many people benefit from it. If you give a very bad talk, a very hopeless talk, then that's even better. They won't invite you back again, and you can have a nice, easy life in the future. I always look at things in a positive way. That means you don't have any fear. That makes sense? Make sense or no sense? That's it. That's the ball game. This is it. US.
Let them come back at 22.
Okay, so if you want to come back again, if you haven't had enough already, you come back again at 22:10. Hey, 22:10? Okay. 20 to 10, 9:40.